Hi, in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at Emacs 29 new functions and commands and how things like mapping keyboard shortcuts have changed. So this is taken from the Emacs news for Emacs 29, and what I've done is actually gone through and just picked out a few commands and functions that have changed that are interesting or you'd like to know about basically. So first of all, what we have is the key maps have changed. So the format that you use to create keyboard shortcuts has actually changed. So if I have a look at the previous format, what you'll see is we have global set key, xbd, like this. We then also have define key global map, xkb. We have these sort of format where we have a sort of \c-cl. Now all of this has changed into a new format. So what we're supposed to do is use keymap-set instead of define key, and keymap-global-set instead of global set key. So the new format, this is the old format that you'll be used to using xbd like this, and this is the actual new format that is simplified. So what we have here is, for instance, global keymap-global-set, control C TV, and this runs multi-term. Whereas before what we were doing is global set key xbd in sort of in brackets or braces, parentheses, that's it, and then double quotes. So the actual format is a lot easier to use now. We can remove that xbd stuff and we just use keymap-global-set, double quotes with the key map in here, and then we have the function that's actually going to be run. The same deal with keymap-set global map. It used to look like this: define key global map, xbd, and then the stuff in quotes, and then the function. That's now been simplified to keymap-set global. We remove the the kdb, kbd, yeah, and we just have stuff in double quotes and then the function that's going to be run. So that's the first change, is a simplified way of specifying keyboard shortcuts. Now there's a load of other ones here which I've just put in that I won't go through, but the important thing is there's a new function, keyvalidp. So what I've done is actually link to this blog post in this document, and this is actually what helped me figure out the sort of the new format. So as you can see here, this is the old format like this, and this is the sort of the new approach, and some of the ways you specify things like tab have actually changed. So you can see here, you don't put tab within angled brackets uppercase. You either have to specify it just as tab or tab with angled brackets in lowercase. So that's where I got some of the tips for remapping the keys. So the next thing is package update. Typically what you'll do is you come across to Emacs and you run something like package list packages. Then what you do is you do a capital U to list all the packages that can be updated. You do X to mark them to be updated, and then you do Y to update them. There's now a set of new commands. What we have is package update, and what this allows you to do is specify an individual package to update. So you can run package update and it'll prompt you for the package to update, and you know, like type package update evil and it will update evil. The next command is package update all, And what this does is this command allows updating all packages without any query. So it will basically just prompt you to update all the packages. It won't tell you which packages are being updated, I don't think, from memory. It will just say, do you want to update all the packages? And you just run Y to update them. There are also some other commands here, like new commands, package vc install. Packages can now be installed directly from source by cloning from a repository. So you've got all these new commands to actually install packages from a repository. So I'm not going to actually go through these because I haven't looked at these too much. But it's just, these are a list of some of the commands that from the Emacs news that I thought were interesting. So those are some of the package commands. Now what we have here is there's a new change for emacsclient. There's a new command line option -r, or reuse frame for emacsclient, and I'll show you what that does. So if I come across here to the terminal, and what I'll do is I'll make a git directory. So I'll make a directory, test directory, and I'm going to run git init git. I'll create a file, touch test git add test. Now what I'm going to do is run git commit a. Now typically what will happen is Emacs would open a new frame. So a frame is a window, and what you normally call a window. So if I run git commit a and I have the -r option set for emacsclient, what you'll see happens is that instead of opening a new Emacs frame, so that's opening a new window with Emacs in it, what it's going to do is reuse the existing graphical frame. So rather than spawning a new Emacs frame, a window as it were, it's going to use your existing one, which is just makes much more sense basically. So what I'll do is I'll come across here and show you in my ZSH env what we have down here. Okay, the emacsclient is the editor, so export alternate editor. Then we have export editor, visual, and editor. So you can see here emacsclient -r -a emacs -r -c -a emacs. Put it two different ones, and basically, as I said, what that does is instead of opening up a new Emacs frame, it will use the existing graphical frame if one's hanging about basically. So that's another really useful change, and you basically put this bit of code in your ZSH env file, and once you do that, you can source it, source.zsh env, and then when you run emacsclient, it's going to reuse the existing graphical frame of Emacs. The next thing we have down here is the alphabackground, which I covered in a previous video. And what that does is allows you to set a transparency on Emacs. There's some commands here for Windows, new commands, split root below and split root right. So these are just new splitting commands for the root window. The next one I want to cover is diod, new user option diodefreespace. And what this will allow you to do is actually hide the free space text that comes up in diod. So if I switch to diod, what you typically get in diod is it will say free space available 600 gig or whatever up here, and that's a bit distracting. I didn't want that, so we can actually disable that by putting this in our emacs.init.el set q diod-freespace nil, and that will hide the diod free space option. There's actually, if I come in here, and have a look through the Emacs news. There are actually some settings you can use. New option, diodefreespace. Diode will now by default include the free space in the first line instead of having it on a separate line. To get back the previous behavior, say set q diodefreespace separate. So you now have an option to have the free space in the first line, or you can have it on a separate line. But also you can set this to nil to disable it completely. Okay, next one we want to cover is restart Emacs. This is like save buffers, kill Emacs, but instead of just killing the current Emacs process at the end, it starts a new Emacs process using the same command line arguments as the running Emacs process. So this is just a way to sort of restart Emacs more efficiently than before, basically. You can just run restart Emacs, and I think it will just start a new Emacs process using the same options that the previous one was started up with. There's a new command for buffers, new display action, display buffers full frame. This action removes other windows from the frame when displaying a buffer. So you can actually set a buffer to always appear full frame and remove other windows from the frame. In tabbar, there's a new command, tabbar history mode map. By default, it contains Control-C left and Control-C right to browse the history of tab window configurations back and forth. I haven't looked at that. And then finally, there's another one here. New minor mode, pixel scroll precision mode. When enabled, and if your mouse supports it, you can scroll up and down the display at pixel resolution according to what your mouse wheel reports. Unlike pixel scroll mode, this mode scrolls the display pixel by pixel as opposed to only animating line by line scrolls. So those are some of the sort of interesting new commands that popped out at me from the Emacs news. So I'll put links to this document, and it's quite long. You can see here it's several thousand lines long. It's about 4,500 lines long. So have a look through this, and pick up some of the changes. If you have any issues with things not working, you know, or you know, what would you say? You know, little bugs or things, you know, that suddenly appeared when you've upgraded. Have a look through this document, and you'll see some options have been deprecated and there's new options. Again, the most sort of useful ones I'd say are actually the way the keymaps have actually changed. So again, you may be used to this old format, global set key, XBD, like this, and define key global map, XKB, or you can see down here we have this format where we have a backslash before C, so backslash C dash CL. This is all now changed, so you can see this one down here was backslash C dash CL. That's now just Control-C-L, so it's much simpler to use. There's no more backslashes, no more using XKB. You've got the keymap-global-set. You just put it in double quotes like this, and then run the actual function. And then you've got keymap-set global map down here like this. And I'd have a look at this blog post as well, because it might make things sort of a bit more obvious about how things have actually changed. So that's one of the things that was really useful. The other thing, did I cover that? Where's the scratch command? Did I put that in there? Yeah, I missed that one. New command, scratch buffer. This command switches to the scratch buffer. If scratch doesn't exist, the command creates it first. You can use this command if you inadvertently delete the scratch buffer. So let's try that. I've got the scratch buffer here. Let's delete the scratch buffer. And now what we'll do is run scratch buffer, and it's back from the dead. So that's really useful. If you deleted your scratch buffer, normally what you'd do is, oh bugger, I'll restart Emacs or something. No need to do that. You can kill the scratch buffer, just run mx scratch buffer, and it will recreate it. So that's really useful. But those are most of the kind of newsworthy things that sort of popped out at me. So I've gone through and rejigged my init.el, added the new keymaps, and again you have to pay attention because there's this new where is it? New function key valid p. The KBD function is quite permissive and will try to return something usable even if the syntax of the argument isn't completely correct. The key valid p predicate does stricter check of the syntax. So have a look at this blog post again, and this will hopefully make things a bit clearer about why things aren't working. You know, if you're having issues not being able to get the key maps to work properly, have a look at this and it should make things click a bit easier. So have a look through this document. There's lots of new changes. I've only just covered a few brief ones that would probably be something to crop up. Some of these are quite obscure that you might not use, but those are the things that sort of stood out as useful. You know, the changing the key maps. And there are all these different new sort of key map things I haven't actually gone through. The package updates quite useful. So again, instead of doing package list packages, you know, capital U, X, Y, you can now just do package update all, and it will just prompt you for the packages to update. You also have package recompile, and I said you have this new section here I haven't actually got into where you can install packages directly from source by cloning a repository. It's actually quite difficult to find stuff, and typically if I come across here and go Emacs 29, what you find is that I actually get my own video coming up. So when I get my own posts coming up, I know that there's not actually a lot of stuff out there. One of the top hits up here was the Emacs news, which is obviously this link here. So going through and trying to find a blog post or something about some of these news changes can be a bit challenging, but luckily I found this one by Dr. Shapeless about the key maps, which helped me sort of figure out the syntax of this. So have a look through the news. Again, the Emacs client, that's really useful, this new -R option, so that it doesn't open up a new Emacs graphical frame. It will reuse the existing one. The diodefreespace, I quite like that. The scratch buffer, being able to recreate it, that's really useful. I'm not sure how many of the other ones I'd use, but I just put them in there just because they were ones that perhaps were more useful than other things in the 4,000 lines of Emacs news. These were just the ones that stood out as being sort of most useful to most people. So I'll put links to all this under the video and hope that helps out. And what you can do is come across here and let me just close this. So let me just come back up here. So this is going to be this is the link to my init.el, and what you can actually do is you can see up here history. So you can come across to the history and you can see the previous versions of the document. So as I say, you can like browse the repository at this point in history, come back to config Emacs init.el. So if I've done a video and you've gone and had a look at my Emacs configuration and it's changed, what you can always do is just come back to the history and have a look at the file at that point in the history to see what I've been doing there. But as you can see, if I scroll down, this was the previous version of using global set key, so with the XBD and defined key XBD, and this is the new version. So you can have a look and see what the old version looks like and what the new format looks like. So what I'll do is I'll put a link to both these, the new version and the old version, so you can actually see how the format of the key maps has actually changed. If you're not actually if you can't get things to work. So what I'd recommend doing is going through and gradually changing your key maps, reloading your init.el, and you may get some warnings coming up, and just go through and gradually fix them until you get all your warnings disappeared. So the other one I wanted to mention was the key map for hippie expand. So this isn't like hippies as in 70s, 60s and 70s hippies. This is a expansion option in Emacs, and meta / is usually bound to, I think it's the abbreviation expand, and this was the previous format: global set key, remap, the abbreviation expand, hippie expand, and that's now changed to this keymap-global-set meta / hippie expand. I'll briefly show you what that does. So what this will do is it will actually cycle through, by pressing meta / it will actually cycle through various completions. So for instance, if I type DE and press meta / what you'll see, it's expanding to desktop, then it dependency, deleting, deleted, default. It will actually go through sort of local directories and then elif functions like this. So that's really, really useful. So again, if I do something like do and then do that, it's going to documents, downloads, DOAS, done, do mode line. So as you can see, it's actually going through Lisp commands as well as directories and commands like DOAS. So that's really useful for auto completion, and that's hippie expand, and that's built in to Emacs. So what you can do is basically specify using hippie expand instead of the default D abbreviation expand, because hippie expand is actually more powerful. So those are just some of the changes I wanted to cover in Emacs 29, some of the new commands and functions that are useful, and some of the sort of gotchas in how the key maps work and things like that. So I'll put links to all this under video. So that's going to be the main document with a list of some of the changes. We've got the Emacs news here, 4,000 lines to go through. There's the drshapeless.com blog with some useful information on the key maps, my new init.el, and the previous version. So I'll put links to all this under the video and hope that helps out.